All right, everybody, we've got some things to discuss coming out of Cleveland. All right. Um, so earlier today, I think it was announced that the Browns decided to make Dylan Gabriel the starter going into week 5 against the Minnesota Vikings. Probably not going to be an amazing defense to start out against in for your NFL debut, but I don't think it's a big surprise that they made this move. Uh, Cleveland had pretty much the worst offense in the league throughout this year, besides maybe Tennessee, who is starting a rookie quarterback. And putting Joe Flacco out there in general just is a weird feel for the fans. I think it's similar to the New York situation with Russell Wilson. You kind of know and kind of have a feel that there isn't much that's going to happen if you have Joe Flacco playing as your starting quarterback throughout the entire year. So I think it makes sense to make an adjustment early to keep the fans bought in on some sort of progression throughout the year. Um, but I think the big story from this is something that happened, I think maybe 20, 30 minutes ago. And it's a video that came out of a locker room press conference reporter asking Shedeur questions about the move. Um, I I didn't watch the video a bunch of times because it was mainly the reaction and answer that Shedeur was giving that was shocking. But I think the question was just along the lines of what can he do to show the coaches that he deserves a chance to start, um, the chance that Dylan Gabriel is getting now. And um, before I get into it, I don't know where he could have possibly came up with this idea for a response. I'm guessing that it was just in the moment, um, reacted this way because for him to premeditate responding this way would just be even worse than his initial response is already. But instead of Shedeur doing things that we've seen before in uh, interviews where you know the athlete is somewhat frustrated, right? Think about Marshawn Lynch in the Super Bowl press conferences. I'm just here so I don't get fined, right? That was a pretty infamous reporting moment. I think we've probably seen other situations before where someone just continues with the same response over and over again, deflecting the questions. So there's tactics that we've seen when athletes don't want to answer a question or don't like the question. And there's professional ways to go about it, and even not so professional ways that are accepted to go about it, right? But what Shedeur did to answer the reporter's question is something that I have never seen before and have no idea where he got this idea from or why he thought that this would be a good response. And what he did was um, he essentially mouthed the answers. He moved his mouth without actually speaking the answers to the reporter. Gave a lot of physical gestures within that. Gave a lot of facial expressions. So it almost felt a little sarcastic and like petty in a way, where um, and it really shows how out of touch it seems like Shedeur has been since he's left Colorado. Um, and not only just Shedeur, but the whole, I would say Dion as well, and his involvement with the process of Shedeur getting drafted and leaving Colorado, um, with the not interviewing teams, telling teams not to draft him, especially with the recent things that came out with not wanting to go to the Ravens, not wanting to go to the Eagles. I mean, these are great franchises that have proven to be well run, um, purely because he didn't want his son to be a backup. And then we end up in a situation where he's not even a backup, he's a third stringer for what is known as the worst franchise in the NFL for the last 20, 30 years in Cleveland. At least one of the worst. Um, so I would assume that with this response, it's probably going to get a lot of attention because not only is Shedeur trying to compete for a quarterback spot for Cleveland, the team he's on now, which it doesn't seem he's very bought into being a teammate. He's more bought into proving that he can be a quarterback in the league, which is already not a great start. But he's also competing for opportunities other than Cleveland. Um, it it's hard to say that the response that he gave today is doing him any favor in that regard. Um, we've seen situations with veteran quarterbacks that were previous starters like Cam Newton, and we're seeing it now with Russell Wilson, where it feels weird for them to be a backup just because of their personality and the weight of their persona in the locker room. Um, and I think that that is something that we're seeing with Shedeur, unfortunately for him, because having your third string quarterback bring in these type of distractions essentially is just not what you want at all from your backup quarterback. You want your backup quarterback to be able to say all the right things, do all the right things, be a team guy, always there for the team. And right now, especially from the response that we got today, it seems like the only thing Shedeur Sanders is bought in on is Shedeur Sanders. And I don't even know how much he is to blame for this because I feel like it's more a product of the way he has grown up and with his dad being Deion Sanders, one of the greatest athletes to ever live. So I think he's just built to think that way. I think he's just built to think that he is the best and that anybody else is just a hater. But um like I mentioned earlier, I think this response is a very good representation of how out of touch Shedeur has been with where he stands as a NFL quarterback because and maybe he's right. Maybe who knows? Maybe he gets a chance in 2 or 3 weeks. Um, like I said, they start out with the Vikings and then they play the Steelers, which is a divisional matchup, gonna be tough. Maybe Dylan Gabriel's debut doesn't go well, right? Maybe Shedeur comes in 3 weeks and he balls out and he proves everyone wrong. Do I think that's likely? No, but there's a chance. And in all reality, even if he does do that, I still think it's very clear the type of person that you're going to have to deal with. And that's a person that you cannot have as a backup because clearly when things do not go his way, um he doesn't have the personality to be able to take it professionally. And maybe that's because of just how deeply he believes that he should be the starter. But even though that's the case, and even if that's the case, he is not doing himself any good to get himself that chance on the Cleveland Browns or any team in the league. There are plenty of teams right now that could use a quarterback. And obviously, it would be a little weird to trade for a rookie that hasn't shown anything. If you're like the Bengals who need a quarterback, um, but he's just this is not a good look for him to be wanting to continue his NFL career. And the reason this is a big talking point is because I feel like there's going to be a lot of discussion around Shedeur's response to this situation. And I'm curious as to if there's going to be a follow up as well to Shedeur asking why he decided to respond that way. I doubt that there will ever be an answer to that because the answer to that is probably worse than it would be worse like PR wise than what he just did today anyway. So I doubt even if we do get a follow-up question of why he responded that way, that it will get a valid response. Um, but to talk about Dylan Gabriel a little bit, I do think it's pretty justified for him to get this start. Obviously, they drafted him before Shedeur, but just comparing their college resumes, Dylan Gabriel was legit in college. Like, uh, I think his limitations were with what you would see him as a prospect just because of size and play style. But we've seen things similar to Dylan Gabriel. We've seen prospects similar to Dylan Gabriel have some degree of success in the league. Um, so I don't think it's stupid of the Browns to give him this opportunity. And I also think, like I said earlier, I think Shadeur's probably going to get a chance to play in a couple weeks. Um, but this response to questions was just weird. It's something I've never seen before from an athlete. Like I said, I feel like it's a response you'd get from a little kid that didn't get his way, so he wants to mock you to piss you off or something. It's a strange response, and I'm curious to hear the discussions that might be going on from that video. Shout out to the Browns. Good luck, Cleveland.